judge released hundreds of pages of court documents that feature unredacted names, including former President Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew, and a former New Mexico governor. Former President Trump's name also appears. He knew Epstein for years, but cut him off after he allegedly hit on a teenage girl at Mar-a-Lago. Marla Teja spoke with the former federal prosecutor who explained the significance.
The bottom line is that a lot of this stuff is kind of really, I don't say earth-shattering, but the type of documents, the photographs, the deposition testimony, if the statute of limitations hasn't run, if there's things that can be done, this may be the impetus to get it going.
Other famous names in the papers include Leonardo DiCaprio, Cameron Diaz, David Copperfield, and Stephen Hawking.
The king of pop, Michael Jackson, also mentioned a couple times, along with celebrity magician David Copperfield and Hollywood star Leonardo DiCaprio.
A lot of these people have denied the allegations.
Former presidents and a British prince are among those named in newly unsealed court documents that give more insight into the world of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The previously sealed documents, made public Wednesday, are related to a lawsuit filed back in 2015 against Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell.
The question here is, what were all of these powerful people doing in this very sordid world?
Mentioned nearly 50 times in the documents, former President Bill Clinton. In a deposition, Epstein accuser Joanna Sjoberg was asked, quote, "Did Jeffrey Epstein ever talk to you about Bill Clinton?" She replied, quote, "He said one time that Clinton likes them young," referring to girls. Britain's Prince Andrew is accused of having sex with minors in the documents. One of Epstein's victims settled a lawsuit with the prince, who denies all wrongdoing, back in 2022.
Hopefully more documents will be released and we'll have better insight into what happened, who did what, and when.
Other names unsealed include Michael Jackson, David Copperfield, and attorney Alan Dershowitz. There are still more documents that are expected to be unsealed.
The documents are only part of about 250 set to be unsealed at a later date.
I believe the Epstein list is going to be exposed. I believe this list is going to get exposed. And I know that's kind of a throwback. It's like, well, we already had, what's her name in court. We already had these things happen. But I'm telling you, I think that's coming also. And I think they're just doing everything they can to navigate that and mitigate that. I'm telling you, there's going to be an exposure, this Epstein list. That's not over yet. You're going to see unbelievable names on there. You're going to see people, Hollywood celebrities and all this, that will be greatly exposed on this list. And that's going to come out. There is a hidden agenda. Now, I've prophesied this a bit, and I'm going to say there's a few signs about this. Let me talk about the signs. One is we're going to see more about this Epstein mess. There's going to be very graphic exposure, and this exposure will be shoved in the face of people. Okay? I sense this coming. This exposure will lead to more exposure of other things we don't even know about right now. There's going to be more exposure that comes with that. You're going to see that take place. More of this kind of pervy stuff is going to come out. You're going to see that happening. The list has already, I believe, been revealed, and yet they don't want to get it to the public eye. I sense there's going to be leaks, and it's still going to continue to make its way out into the public. But then there's also other lists that they're afraid of. The reason this one doesn't get released fully is because there's several others that would then be linked to it or daisy chained to it that would come out into the public eye.
Daily Mail obtained the files and broke down who and how the people were involved. I'm looking at this article. This is Irina Shayk, Chris Rock, Richard Branson, Peter Thiel as mentioned, Jeff Koons, Mariah Carey's ex, Jamie Dimon, the chief executive of JP Morgan. A lot more with the Prince Andrew situation.
There's a winner. Anyway, so here's what we're talking about. When we're looking at these things, there's so many more people. And of course, the celebrities don't want this to come out. Of course, they don't want information like this to get out because you might actually see who they really are. The Lord is going to continue to reveal these kind of twisted behaviors of these individuals because I believe clearly that it's going to be a choice given by the culture if they will serve the Lord or if they're going to continue to follow this strange fire narrative. One of the very important things
the Lord has called this ministry to do, called me and Heather to do over the years, is to be a prophetic voice to the nations and through media. And I just want to say to you, many times early in the morning, the Spirit of the Lord will speak to me while I'm praying for you, our partners and viewers, and just sometimes even while I'm on the live broadcast, I'll begin to write on the whiteboard. Now, if you've been a viewer of ours for some time, you are accustomed to this and how God works through us, and it operates much like this. Sometimes I'll go to the whiteboard, start to write things, and the Spirit of the Lord will begin to speak to me in that moment, and I will begin to draw out what I see or share it verbally, of course. And sometimes I'll have what I call day visions, or early in the morning, I'll get almost a waking vision, and I see things sometimes before they happen. And some of these scenarios I'm released by the Lord to say, and some of them I am not. As a matter of fact, I'm holding on to many right now that I don't talk about because I've not been authorized by the Holy Spirit to speak about it. But what I'm going to show you right now is a series of clips that, God willing, I'll explain to you. And these are just samples of moments that we've prophesied things in the past and then their fulfillment. And I believe that we have to operate in revelation, interpretation, and application. Remember, prophecy is where we know in part, we prophesy in part. We see into the future sometimes, and sometimes we see through a glass dimly, which means you see part of the picture and you're trying to work through the narrative. So it's my goal that as you're watching this, you'll realize that prophecy does work. We're going to give you point and case, times that I've prophesied words and then their fulfillment, both in the news and circumstances and scenarios that line up with the word that was released. So I'm going to start by showing you a prophetic word that was given by me on a live broadcast. The Spirit of the Lord spoke something to my heart and I began to release it. This is from November 18th all the way back in 2020, and the topic is food shortages. I begin to talk about food shortages. Now that doesn't seem positive, and I actually had some wonderful voices pull me aside and say, you got to be careful you're not bringing fear here. And I said, I'm not bringing fear. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm trying to prepare people. It's different if you're just making things up or you're too jacked up on Mountain Dew, so you got to say something. Actually, what it is the Lord really has shown me things, and then I carefully try to release it with accountability so people can prepare or pray. God shows us things so we can pray. Amos chapter 2 verse 7, it says it so clearly. The Lord does nothing unless he first reveals it to his servants, his prophets. But what it says is he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets, which means the revelation about what is to come. And God shows us that so we can prepare, so we can pray, we can change the narrative or be ready for whatever is to come. So this first one I want to show you is about food shortages. It came out November 18th, 2020, and then a fulfillment came out, and I believe will still come out, with the Manchurian candidate, I like to call them, doing a press conference, and he begins to talk about the coming food shortages. Please watch this clip. I believe we can avoid all this if we continue to pray. We have the righteous in power. We see things happening, but this here could be a strong circumstance where they begin to push this issue. And ultimately, all of this leads to a communism for the purpose of control.
With regard to food shortages, yes, we did talk about food shortages. And it's going to be real. The price of these sanctions is not just imposed upon, it's imposed upon an awful lot of countries as well.
I want to share with you a very unique word also that happened to me. One morning I was waking up early before a live broadcast, as I've explained. And as I'm getting up, suddenly I had a day vision, and I saw like clouds and plumes of smoke and fire. And I didn't know if something man-made had happened, causing an island to explode. And I specifically saw an island in the ocean, and I didn't know if it was volcanic or if it was indeed induced by man. And it was troubling to me, and I just began to pray about it. And I don't still fully understand the fullness of why the Lord showed this to me, but I released it on the live broadcast nonetheless. I prophesied it the best I knew to. Then 2 days later, the Tonga island burst and it exploded. Now, in my spirit today, I still don't know if there's something behind this or if it was just simply a natural anomaly. So I want to pray about it. If you get discernment on it, please let me know or let us know. But I want to show you this clip right now when the Lord showed me in advance through a vision 2 days before the Tonga island exploded. Please watch this clip. I began to see an island, and there was a very disastrous image around this island. And as I began to see the island, it was either filled with difficulty, it was full of smoke and challenges, and I couldn't tell if it was some kind of volcanic activity or if it had to do with a man-made explosion. I didn't know what was going on here, and I began to pray about that. So that's something we need to pray over regarding an island that's somewhere in the next little while, that something difficult is going to begin to happen with that.
Breaking news tonight in Tonga. Check out this incredible new video of a massive underwater volcanic eruption, which triggered a tsunami warning for the region. You can see lightning in the plume of ash and multiple blasts. This happened about 2.5 hours ago.
In October of 2021, the Spirit of the Lord ministered to me a prophetic word right around the time that the Southwest pilots had stood up to protest against some of the mandates and difficulties and all that was happening. And the Spirit of the Lord showed me that it stayed off some difficulty that was coming against the nation. And at that same time, then I had a vision and an intuitive vision where I saw truckers standing up. And the truckers said, "We're not doing this in the vision. We're going to push back." So I prophesied it, as you'll see in the clip in a moment, that they would stand up and rise up and say no, and they would push back. And of course, we know that happened in Ottawa, it happened in Canada, we saw some of it across the United States. Then on the heels of that word, the Lord began to minister to me, and I had an interview with some good friends on His glory, and of course my friend Todd Coconato was asking me the question, "Joseph, you've seen something about now farmers. We knew about the truckers, what about farmers?" And the Lord began to minister to me a word about agriculture, that there would indeed be a unique way farmers would stand up and they would do the same thing the truckers did. So it was another word right after the truckers did what they did, where suddenly the farmers stood up in the Netherlands and many other places. And the Lord showed us this in advance, and I believe there's much more of this to come, and we need to continue praying. But in the meantime, please watch this clip showing the prediction and fulfillment by the Spirit of the Lord for our good and our betterment to pray. God bless you as you watch this clip on truckers and farmers. One of the things you're going to see an uprising in is in the area of the shipping and trucking community. You're going to see, I believe, truckers start to stand up the same way Southwest did, or other people. You're going to start to see truckers, Teamsters that say, "Hold it, we need to start doing this a little different here. And no, you're not going to tell us what we're going to put in our body. We're going to stand up. We're going to begin to push back."
Well over 1,000 people lining the Trans-Canada Highway outside of Winnipeg in -30 wind chills, protesting what they call government overreach.
Let's support these truckers fighting for freedom, fighting as patriots in their country.
This isn't about a mandate on truckers. This is about the entire thing. It's got to go.
Truckers, you gave a prophetic word about the truckers. We saw the truckers standing up. You know, that was an amazing thing. It happened in Canada. It happened here in America. I was involved in some of those rallies. I mean, it was just powerful, man. Something's happening now with the farmers. We're seeing the farmland be hostily taken over by Bill Gates, some of these guys. All this different stuff's going on. What did you hear about that, Joseph?
What I feel is coming next, in that same vein of thought, is I believe the agricultural leaders, farming communities, people that are in that industry to some level will also begin to rise, and they'll begin to speak out, and they will stand in a similar fashion. I don't know how that works, but I feel that's coming next.
Thousands of farmers have assembled, protested against the government's far-reaching plans to cut nitrogen emissions. Farmers say they are being unfairly targeted as opposed to big businesses and industries. Many are vowing to resist any plans to scale down or close farms.
In early November of 2021, I had a prophetic word from the Lord come to me about Queen Elizabeth, that her life would go a course and then she was going to pass away. I began to share what this meant with land transfers, times, and seasons. It's fascinating because even at the same time frame, in a very short few days from each other, both Queen Elizabeth passed on to eternity, and so did my grandmother. And the sensation was interesting because when my grandmother passed away, I sensed it the very minute it happened. We felt the anointing of God come on us, and we felt a change in the atmosphere. It happened exactly like that when the Queen of England passed away. I sensed it in the atmosphere, but the unique thing is the Lord had told us this in advance, nearly a year in advance, through a prophetic message, and then even the very morning, as you'll see in this clip, where I'm prophesying on the board, and we just show a quick excerpt of it. But please pay attention, and I believe the reason I want you to see this is so we can continue to pray, because the significance of Queen Elizabeth and her passing is due to the transition of power and a season we're going into where people are realizing land has been changed, powers and entities, and global shifting has happened. So we need to continue praying, because we are now entering into an end time, end game scenario. But I know we're going to win. I know Jesus is Lord. We're the light in darkness. But the Queen is a sign and a wonder that the Lord showed us about. Please discern this, what the Lord shows you. Here's the clip about Queen Elizabeth. I began to see the Queen of England in a prophetic sense. I began to dream about this. I saw the Queen. As I began to see this imagery of the Queen, I thought, what is this I'm looking at, Lord? What is this all about? And the Queen, the Lord began to speak to me and minister to me and say, watch what begins to happen with her next, and watch what happens to her suddenly and even over the next season. You're going to begin to see things happen to her physically, and you're going to begin to see things that begin to unfold, and it is a sign to the nations. Some of the things that will happen through the Queen are a sign to the nations. We need to begin to watch over what happens to the Queen of England. There's a sign to the nations in it, and some of it could be very, very difficult. What I think is going to happen is the Queen, her time on earth is coming to a close, and there's going to be a transition. Now, whether you like her or don't like her, or you believe the conspiracy things, or if they're true, all I want to say about it is there's something very significant that's going to happen, and here's what it is. When there's a transition of power there's going to indeed be a transition of land, a transition of holdings, a transition of authority with ownership in many arenas, okay? And the big thing is going to be land ownership and property ownership. And when you see this happening, this will be a sign that there is a great shift has happened, not only in a generation, but it is happening in a way that's going to begin to bring new powers and elites onto the field. And I believe it's a sign that we're getting close to the end of the age, at least as far as we're concerned, okay? And so that's coming quickly, and there's going to be a land transfer when that happens. When the Queen departs, the land will transfer. And some of it's going to be silent, some of it will be large. It's going to even play into, and I don't fully understand, but it's going to play into some of the ownership of farms and lands in the United States. There's going to be things that play into that. So when she departs, there's going to be a shift of power in land transfers, which means a shift of power in wealth and ownership. And some of it will be for nefarious characters, and some of it will be for righteousness. When this transition happens, there's going to be land, there's going to be many things that begin to break loose regarding the Queen and where that's headed.
The Queen has passed away. The Queen died peacefully, the royal family says, at Balmoral this afternoon.
Britain's longest ruling monarch, the world's second longest ruling monarch in history, her reign spanning 70 years. We just received a tweet from the royal family saying the Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon.
In this next clip I'm about to show you, I had a prophetic word come to me back in February 8th of 2021, and then that same year in December, a similar word came to me. And of course, I had the same word come to me several times in between. Here's what the word was. It was about a freedom tech, how Elon would be involved, that Twitter would be involved, and there was going to come a new force through social media that would begin to set people's voice free. I mentioned Don Jr. I also have had many words about Elon Musk leading up to this. Now, mind you, this is a year and a half before Elon Musk bought Twitter. So I just am showing this to you so we can begin to pray, because I believe the goal and the purpose of it is so that we can have freedom of speech, hit social media everywhere. I believe that is why the Lord showed this to me. Please join your faith with mine as we see what the Lord showed us a year and a half before Twitter was purchased and well before some of this new social media shaking is about to begin. Please watch this clip. I began to see a new freedom technology, okay? Now, I don't know who's gonna bring this forward, but it could be the former president. He might actually do something like that. I think that would be more powerful than him even going back in right now. There's going to come a freedom tech one way or another. Now, will it come through the president? Maybe. Will it come through Elon and Don Jr. and all these people, this freedom technology that could come forward, I believe there's going to be a fresh social media voice. I don't know what's going to happen with some of the things that have gone down, but it could even be, and I have a strange sense that the chokehold could get very strong on social media, and then I see a window. Now pray with me about this, because I see a window in social media where, because of this freedom tech that could come forward of making freedom of speech cool again, let's make freedom of speech great again, right? And you realize that could begin to happen. Social media, it could actually, you could see things like, Facebook and Twitter and all these different ones that have been the big conglomerate companies that are coming out. They could actually begin to release some of their stranglehold and let people talk freely again. That could happen. I know it's going the other way right now, and maybe it'll never happen, but I have a sense that over this, there'd be enough pressure from this that it would make the market competitive again, where they'd say, my goodness, if they're doing this, we better get with the program and start treating people better, right? I shared at the beginning of this year about a topic called freedom tech. First of all, I prophesied that this could have been with number 45 before it was announced he was doing anything. Then I began to talk about this man, that Lindell would come out with some tech, and he did. We began to prophesy about a number of things, but I also talked about this man, Elon. This freedom tech we began to prophesy about with all that's going on. In other words, we could have one more round of a voice of freedom. In other words, we could be able to speak freely again on an open platform for the public, and it can't be shut down, censored, or silenced the way that they would like it to be. This indeed gives hope, because this man here, he's a rebel. He's a little bit of a rebel. I'm not saying that he's godly. I'm not saying that everything he does is going to be right. There could be a lot of wrong, a lot of unrighteousness happening, but at least he's not going with the narrative of the popular opinion of things. Now, this is what I prophesied earlier. I think also we're going to begin to see some things happening around this freedom tech that could bounce through 22, but we could begin to see freedom tech in 23. And this could be almost like a wild card answer in 2023 leading up to the 24. Let me say this about Elon Musk. I've never tried to preach the values or how good of a person he is or any of that. He may do something really terrible tomorrow, but God will use him to change and shake up things and shake up the institution. Elon Musk may not be perfect and may not preach the gospel and do things the way people are thinking, but listen to me, make no mistake about it. He is a reformer, and God will continue to speak through him and offend the institutions just because of what he has going on in him.
On Monday, Twitter's board of directors announced it had agreed to sell the social media company to Elon Musk for about $44 billion.
In the month of September in the year 2020, the Spirit of the Lord prophesied to me one of the most significant events that I believe he's ever shown me. And of course, that was that the Supreme Court, through an unprecedented ruling, would indeed overturn Roe versus Wade. Now, the Lord had us prophesy this out on September of 2020, and I wrote it on the whiteboard. I'm going to show you that clip in a moment. And when this happened, as it got closer and closer, the days leading up to it, right around June, the beginning of June 2022, the Spirit of the Lord then ministered to me that there was coming a great earthquake, but the earthquake would be a sign that there was going to be judgment against wickedness and unrighteousness. And the earthquake happened to be in Afghanistan, where all these troops and scenarios were abandoned. It was almost a sign and a wonder, and right on the heels of that earthquake came the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And the Lord speaks to me in this way. So, spoke to me in 2020 that Roe v. Wade would be overturned. We prophesied it publicly. And then, of course, then I had this word about an earthquake that would come. And this earthquake was both in the natural, and it was going to be a sign for something monumental, which then happened. And then Brett Baer goes on the news and says this overturn of Roe v. Wade was a political earthquake. Please watch this, and let's thank the Lord for what he's had happen through good people in the United States. Please watch. We're going to begin to see unprecedented rulings like never before. Unprecedented rulings. Because I believe justice is coming. Justice is coming for the unborn. I've said this for a long time, but Roe versus Wade, I believe is going to get overturned. this Roe versus Wade, ungodly genocide, murder, absolute evil that's come against our children, I believe so strongly there's going to be absolute overturning of Roe versus Wade. I believe that's coming. And I believe when it comes, it's going to be to the screaming cries of the wrong side of things. You're going to see Planned Parenthood across this nation begin to have the doors slammed shut. Planned Parenthood is going to get rocked. Planned Parenthood is going to get shaken. Planned Parenthood is going to see the doors slammed shut, and it's going to be a turnover. Early this morning, you'll have to interpret this, I began to feel an earthquake, a large earthquake coming to the planet somewhere. I started to pray about this early this morning, and I felt this shaking in my spirit, man. I felt this shaking hitting the earth somewhere. I began to feel this trembling and shaking, and the Lord is saying it is a sign and a wonder that I'm getting the attention of the people. And I'm not saying God is causing these things or doing these things, but I am saying there will be a sign and a wonder when you see a great earthquake. And this great earthquake begins to happen, know that the shaking has begun and the change of the narrative has begun, and a great shaking and a quaking is coming against the ungodly and the wicked that are trying to put all these nefarious agendas on the generation that's right in front of us.
We have just received word of a decision in one of the most consequential cases before the Supreme Court in decades.
There it is. It's official. There is no longer a federal constitutional right to abortion in this country.
The justices have reached a final ruling on the Mississippi abortion law that prohibits nearly all abortions after 15 weeks and directly challenges Roe v. Wade.
It's historic, no doubt about it. And politically, it's an earthquake.
These prophetic words that I've shown you are just a sampling of things that happen to us sometimes often, sometimes on a weekly basis, and sometimes spread out over a year. But the Spirit of the Lord does speak to us, and He speaks to all His prophets, and He'll speak to you just like this, depending on where you are in your walk with the Lord and how you're hearing Him.
I want to thank our partners and those of you who are watching right now who have been joining us. And maybe there are some of you who might even have been on the fence about becoming a partner. I just want to encourage you, if that's something that you might be praying about or inquiring the Lord about, to maybe just go ahead and take a step. And we would love to invite you as one of our partners and as a partner family. You'll get a call every month from us. You'll receive a phone call. We pray for you. And we have many other resources that we have where you can come together and receive prayer as well. And so if you're looking to potentially partner somewhere, please send us. We're looking to go everywhere we can reach all around the world to get the gospel of Jesus, the good news, to any and all who will hear and see and trust and know that He is Lord. So if you're looking to partner, you can go ahead and go to josephz.com. All the information is there for you to join and to sign up with us and partner up, really coming together as a joint partnership to really getting the gospel around the world. Visit us at josephz.com, or you can text the keyword GIVE to 719-259-0029. We sure would love to have you join us and join up together so we can see this world one for Jesus. And that's why we have Go in Red. It stands for the blood of Jesus as we come together and partner together in Him. We sure do love you all so much, and we are so grateful for your support and your help. We look forward to continuing to growing with you, praying with you, and seeing you here every weekday morning here on Joseph Z. We love you all so much and look forward to talking soon.
Are you prepared for 2024? Well, we want to do our part to ignite the roar in 2024. That's why we're hosting the Power to Stand Conference in Mesa, Arizona, February 9th and the 10th. My dear friend Rick Renner will be joining me, along with Pastor Jason Anderson, for 2 powerful days that are saturated in the presence of God. I'm telling you, this world is getting wild. This year is going to be filled with unparalleled challenges, but you're going to be filled with the faith of God to stand against what comes next. I encourage you, join us for this conference, February the 9th and 10th at the Power to Stand. I promise you, your life is going to be impacted. I hope to see you there.